just secretly press the record button when I'm not looking?
I just pressed it right now.
How dare
Listen,
you?
we're not live, but the first episode is technically
Live.
live. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So, what were we talking about? Rape or something? Um,
Yeah, yeah. So like, if under if nationalism was true, right? Um,
yeah.
and there's no God, no little sky daddy and all that stuff, right? Um, then and I observe all these, murders and rapes from other animals as well, humans are animals, and stealing. Then what would be the moral defeater for there to be any type of morals within the system that is indexed to any type of behavior?
So the
Nationalism doesn't
argument
get.
is if everything is just natural, then what is the defeater for me having any arbitrary moral set I want and imposing it on other people? Is that the argument?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. I can just do whatever I want in regards
Exactly.
to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it would just be arbitrary. Like every single solitary um, moral feature that's indexed to a behavior would then just be arbitrary. It would just be like, oh well, so what?
I
It's like, oh
think
well, you're just.
the notion and idea of naturalism and physicalism, Bernardo Castro put this in a very good way. And I know Chris and Bernardo Castro have quite a bit of a beef going on, but Bernardo Castro, I love the way that he put this, is that the naturalists and physicalists have this conception of quantification as a means of describing reality as objective, in quotation, right? Because they believe it to be objective independently of their opinion, because they believe quantifications to be independent of opinion. But what Bernardo is saying is that truly there is no actual quantification that is non-arbitrary. They're all just very uh, distinguished and categorized qualities. They're all forms of qualities and qualia that we're having, and we're categorizing them in very narrow and standardized ways. So there is no actual quantification to this physical reality as people deem it to be objective in the physicalist or naturalistic way, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, that's quite the insight because what I usually say is like it will give me one minor independent fact, just one, and then it's usually it goes, oh well, there's stuff outside of my head and things like
Like
that.
prove
It's like,
it.
well, yeah, and it's like, well,
And it's
you
not
had to
just
use
prove
your
it.
the issue with that is that well in order for there to be any type of fact you'd have to use your mind, so any type of mind independency of what you would consider to be fact
Would
cannot
have to be
happen. It's an
demonstrated without a
impossibility.
mind.
Yes, and since you're using your mind to dream up that scenario where there is no
It's a
mind, it's an
contradiction.
impossibility. Yeah, it's going to be a contradiction. And since there's an impossibility, then that means that the only type of possible or what I would call it obtainable world. Obtainable was a bit more have a lot more logical constraints. So an
Yeah,
obtainable
yeah, yeah,
world would result in obtaining certain features that result in some type of mind. So at least
yeah.
there's at least one mind and one reality. That's just going back to the mind equals reality type of principle within the CTMU.
Absolutely. And if you and I gave the extension of this a couple of years back when I did a small paper. I ended up rescinding it on the logical perceptual proof for the existence of God. And I think you can extend this logically and provide a proof for the existence of God by saying, well, if the standard for existence is ultimately going to be dependent upon a standard of perception, right? Then who is perceiving reality, right? If we're saying that reality exists and all of that which is real exists and our consciousness exists, well, we're not able to verify our consciousness from an external source yet. It does exist. We're not able to perceive our consciousness. So what is the minimally necessary power or entity that is required logically as a necessity in order for our consciousness to be existent, in order for it to be perceived and therefore existent, right? And the answer would have to be God.
Yes, because in order for there to be any type of medium and self closure, like basically a closed type of system, that medium will then have to exist in such an evident way that results in it being intelligible. But if it's intelligible, then it results in it being responsive. If it's responsive, then it's able to be well intelligible. It's recursion, the circular. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, at this type of like meta level, the circularity isn't like a logical fallacy. That would be informal, mind you. It wouldn't even be like a contradiction or something. Okay. So So we have to then look at like, why is the circularity true? Not okay. Well, how do we get outside the circularity? We can't. It's an impossibility. Okay. Um, so because there is no evident reality that can exist, even a logical possibility, for there to be any mind, any non-minded type of like universe, and that means there's at
Any
least one
universe not
universe.
containing a mind?
Yes, any universe that's not containing a mind is opposing a dreamlike state in which you are the one that is then dreaming up that scenario, which
Right.
is a contradiction. So, a performed contradiction, a legitimate problem with that, even that hypothetical. That's why I don't subscribe to the many worlds hypothesis either, because it results in like a contradiction of accessibility or even provability for the hypothesis. But even granting the absolute truth of the many worlds hypothesis and the accessibility, it still results in pushing the can down the road in regards to the explanatory structure. You're just multiplying on more structure that you're not explaining. You're just saying there's more stuff out there. It's okay. There's more stuff out there. What's the structure? How is it being built? What is it? How is it
Yeah.
relating back to even just granting it? Just like here you go. Just for argument's sake, we're just gonna move the conversation forward. It's true. Now what? Okay. It's even absolutely true. Okay. Even granting that. Okay, and it still causes it to collapse into absurdity. So that's why I don't like subscribe to this whole many worlds hypothesis, because it's just silly. It doesn't work.
True, and I mean the primary problem with a lot of people that are atheistic or even agnostic or people that don't really have an understanding of reality that say, "Oh, well, it's fine that I don't have an understanding of reality. It's fine that I don't have any description or justification therein for any proposition that I might potentially hold," right? And they say that and they say it's fine. What is the problem with that? It's like the problem is then that you can't make truth values about reality, then you can't make truth propositions about reality, which extensively means that if I make a proposition about the nature of reality and say, well, the CTMU is the necessary predicate for any worldview to be intelligible, you can't dispute that because you don't fucking know anything and you just admitted it, right? There is no
Yeah,
potential
yeah,
dispute there.
yes. That right there would just mean that you'd have to realize that you're way too ignorant and foolish to even understand what you're even talking about in regards to the nature of the truth. But of course, there's lots of forgiveness. Anyone can learn and just be better, right? But if you're legitimately just utilizing your ignorance and stupidity to then drag other people down to even a proverbial or even literal hell, then yeah, then yes, you
Yeah, this is
that would
kind
be
of like the Matt
wrong.
Dillahunty tactic of weaponized retardation, wherein it's like, yeah, I don't know shit, but because I don't know shit, I think you're wrong. And I have reason to believe you're wrong because other people also agree with me, right? And I think
Yeah,
this is the great turning point in people's understanding of whether Matt Dillon is a fucking idiot or not, which he definitively is. Jordan Peterson asked him, it's like, well, what is your justification for what you think is good? It's like, well, my ancestors believed that existing and surviving is good. It's like, yeah, like monkey value, is that the reason, is that the justification for why we ought to do anything, why we have to make any odd propositions or behave in any
well,
particular way in society?
well, I don't. I would never defend Matt Dillahunty and his lovely wife that is
Oh yeah,
cosplaying as a human. The issue is this: is that um
I think
the
that's very. I think calling Matt's wife that is very disrespectful to his husband. Okay, you need to be more respectful.
yeah, yeah, I'm
That's a
sorry. I
disrespect
have
to
to
his
use
husband.
the correct terminology. Husband, yes, you're
True.
correct.
Yeah.
But yeah, the I don't want to disrespect anyone. Yes,
We need to be
you're very
very
clever
cordial
there.
here. We're trying to give a
Yeah.
perfect representation of the CTMU, okay? We need to be like we need to be polite, politically correct arbiters, okay? We need to be the political
Yes.
mascot here.
Yes, yeah, yeah, and but to make sure, like, to really help out, give some nice leeway to Matt Dillahunty, despite him being incredulous and irrational. let's try to help him out and try to make him a bit more rational. The mainline issue with his views are that if there's he tries to get other people to, prove what he wants to prove, but then never prove what he is then trying to set out to engage with. So then that means that he engage in he all he does is engage in like his own cognitive dissonance in regards to his own incredulity of like, well, because I don't believe it and because I cannot believe it and I don't know if I can believe it, then it results in like some type of weird, like impossible Sisyphean type of task in order to, get to the point of like convincing him, but then he's unwilling to then be able to then get to the point of being able to be convinced. So then it just rock rolls all the way back down to square one, and it's like, well, prove it. And then he says, I'm not convinced. and
Yeah.
and then it's like, well, what is the criteria for you to be convinced about really anything? Like there's a lot of like differences. Like, for example, if I said my car is in the garage, you could easily be convinced, right? Even if I'm supposedly imagining my car or something. Wait, hold up. That person, Matt Dillahunty may have gotten into a car, right? He experienced some type of car, so it's totally fine to someone to take the person's word for it. For example, or if there's some type of all powerful thing that exists, it's like, well, that requires some type some more evidence, right? Like, okay, what type of evidence would you do to substantiate that? And it's like, oh, and then it's like, okay, here's some logical argumentation, okay? Because I could say there's a quasar burst out in I don't know. I forget exactly which galaxy it is. But let's say there's a quasar burst with that out there in the universe, and I give you a logical theorem, a lot like a mathematical theorem, and then you go and get out your telescope and you look at it and you figure out that there is actually a quasar burst in the sky in the night sky there. So and you can experience that. You can actually look at that. You can actually understand that. Or have to get a pretty powerful telescope. Main thing that so but if he just says I'm not convinced by these little symbols on the page, fair enough. He then looks through the telescope and sees for himself the quasar burst, and if he says he's not convinced, then I would have to ask him, what are the conditions for you to be convinced? Because apparently reality isn't able to convince you. The evidence that you saw in regards to your own experience isn't able to convince you. These symbols that reference that type of phenomenological type of experience, which you were able to even experience and were able to access in the first place, is also evidence. So, and that would be able to convince other people, but somehow not you. So why is this hyper skepticism? This such high bar, type of skepticism, and meeting this type of burden of proof. Okay, fair enough. You're not convinced. Well, what type? And then it's like, oh well, God would know what would convince me. It's like, well, okay, so, and if reality is God, then that in regards to his mental content or something, then yes, reality would be the thing that would be convincing you of any type of evident feature of it, but by some type of linguistic, because there is linguistic features of reality as well, which we can reference and write down. Meaning there's certain types of mathematical type of relations that can relate back to the evident reality itself. So these mathematical symbols, aka like a theorem, that I then give you, let's just say I suppose that, right? Just to move the conversation forward. So I give you a theorem, you get your telescope out and you look at it. Those two things basically correspond to one another, and it results in you experiencing that this quasar burst actually happened. Okay, maybe I'm saying it wasn't necessarily a quasar burst; it was a neutron star. Okay, fair enough. It wasn't the quasar burst. That was a mistaken, but that doesn't discount what the experience of what the person is experiencing. Okay, so when it comes to like Matt Dillahunty's like whole like stick of just saying prove it and maintaining an agnostic position, but then going back into an antithetical position from his anti-theist type of position, where he is actually taking the positive position that there is no God, but then he immediately goes, I don't know, when he has any type of pushback. Okay, That's why granting that there isn't any God results in having hilarious levels of contradiction. Well, why? What is your justification for what you think is good? Well, I had ancestors, the monkey ancestors, that thought uh, things were good because they were just good, bro. It's like, okay, well, cool, that's true, but are you going to tell me more? And it's like, well, no, that's it. It's just a brute fact of nature that my ancestors just thought things that were good. It's like, well, how of your ancestors thought you know, uh, the
Yeah.
surprise unconsensual sex in the middle of the forest is apparently not is good. That was your ancestor, not you, but just your ancestors, right? So and they thought that was good. But now you think, you come to more reason and rationality and things like that, and you're like, oh wow, my ancestors were. You could look back at that and go, wow, that's not good. So
The
then
good
that wouldn't
develops,
be.
man. It changes. It's
Well,
amorphous. It's
yeah,
yeah.
it would be changeable. So it would be mutable.
Yeah,
Okay, so the
it would
good would
basically
then
be a
be
format
mutable.
of presentism and relativism. I mean, it would depend on
Well, then that
societal
would
norms.
well then that would not be justification in and of itself. Because if you're just saying, well, the good is just because my monkey parents said valued some type of um some type of human flourishing. Well, your monkey parents also could have been easily, unconsensual sex in the middle of the forest type of, scenarios, and thought that was good, just to promote more human flourishing. So why aren't you thinking about that as well? Like that logically follows from what you just said. If you were thinking that that's the basis for what is good, or the justification for what is good and what isn't good, in regards to like that type of justification, that
Yeah.
that's the logical endpoint of what you're saying. But apparently, you're then saying, "Oh no, 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 good is then relative and then able to then change because I say so." Okay, so then it's arbitrary. Well, no, it's not arbitrary because my monkey parents said valued survival and goodness. Yeah, survival is good, but there's certain people that didn't survive, and I also were killed by your monkey parents as well. Again, like how are you distinguishing those that aren't good and those that are good in regards to the people that are surviving? Are people who die from all kinds of diseases are just evil and they need to they just it's nature's weeding them out, bro. Just they're
Yeah,
dead.
I mean, it's
And
a
the people
good
that
thing for
survive are the
nature to
ones that
do.
are
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I mean,
So
there's
if I
two kinds
so
of ways that you could approach this. I mean, the first way is kind of like the companions in guilt argument, which basically says that in an ethical capacity, that in order for you to make, well, in order for a set of statements to be true and B statements contain set of statements, to say that set of statements is false, then you'd be creating a contradiction if you hold that B set of statements is true, right? And so you can apply this in ethics by saying that in order for you to be able to make descriptive propositions, you need to be able to make prescriptive propositions, right? Because when you actually analyze what it is that a descriptive claim is, what is a descriptive claim? You're describing something in reality, meaning that there is a necessary prerequisite standard to which something in reality must conform to in order for it to satisfy the requisite standard of descriptiveness, right? And that'll be a prescription, right? That'll be this ought to be like this. A descriptive statement ought to be this way. So if you're making a descriptive, if you're going to be making a prescriptive claim in that capacity in reference to a descriptive claim, then why would you not be able to make a prescriptive claim with reference to anything else, right? This would negate moral anti-realism. The other way that you can look at this uh, is essentially that morality in the atheistic framework, saying that morality is subjective and it's time dependent. It depends on this notion of philosophical presentism, right? If you say that, like Matt Dillahunty would say, that secular humanism is the best intelligible human construction of a society that humans could possibly come up with, but it is ultimately subjective, right? Okay, well, you can ask Matt Dillahunty, well, if there was a society in which everybody held secular humanism to be true, and that would be independent of their opinion, would that be objectively the best society? He would say, yeah. Okay, well, if you hold it to be objectively the best society, that would be an objective form of morality, right? And so if you're saying that this construction that you have, this framework that you have that is representative of the best possible ideal state of affairs of reality, right? That would make it independent of somebody's opinion because you're saying that it is with reason, with rationale, with cognition that you have logically sufficient reason to conclude that this is the best possible state of affairs. If it is the best possible state of affairs, and you're saying that people don't agree with this best possible state of affairs, that doesn't actually make it subjective. So then you would have to justify, well, why is this the best possible state of affairs? Okay, and he would not be able to do that. So in total, really, in conclusion, atheism, from both the standpoint of a companions in guilt argument, which is necessarily true in order to justify not even just ethics, but to justify epistemology, right? If you're not going to be an epistemic anti-realist, right? It's false, it's self-contradictory, it's self-negating, and ultimately it's just unintelligible to itself. Within the framework itself, it's unintelligible. If an atheist's metaphysical and epistemological views of reality were true, then that kind of reality would not produce a reality in which the atheist position is true. It entails a contradiction.
Yes, that's the reason why, like, I think that a lot of the new atheist types are ironically becoming like spiritual or more agnostic or
Yeah,
militantly
like Alex
agnostic.
O'Connor.
Yes, yes, that's one of the more headliners right there. He's he's like, well, I'm now agnostic. He doesn't call himself agnostic atheist. He calls himself agnostic or
He did
militant
a
agnostic.
video where the title was, I didn't even watch the video, so I may be completely wrong about this, but the title of the video was, and I've watched peripherally, I have a memory of him saying something like, consciousness may be fundamental to all of reality. And the title of the video was, it's time to accept that consciousness is fundamental, or something of that nature, right? So he goes all the way from being this rabid atheist, physicalist, materialist, right, to like, hey, he finally sees the void that that kind of a worldview produces logically.
Yeah, it's like, and there's also another video that he recently posted. I think it was called like "Why I Tried Nihilism" or something. You
Why I
try
tried nihilism?
nihilism,
What does
like
that
you
even
try
mean?
nihilism, like
How do you try
like it's a
nihilism?
drink or something, like it's a poison. It's like you're like a Minecraft.
I tried nihilism. I tried
It's
to
like
commit
a
suicide. I tried to commit suicide and I failed.
so you're a failure at nihilism. Yeah, you didn't actually try it.
I was
You
like,
weren't a true nihilist, other than the no true Scotsman fallacy. There, it's just
yeah, it's representative of the atheist temperament. You try to kill yourself and you still fail. It's like Jesus Christ.
it doesn't work. It's
It
like
does-
I tried atheism, didn't work. I tried nihilism, didn't work. I tried physicalism. It's kind of working right now. I mean, it is, but like for some reason, it isn't working in essence for some reason. I tried some naturalism, but for some reason, a lion went over and started to unconsensually grabbing my neck with its mouth, and I just was like, what the fuck, lion, come on
yeah,
now,
and
like
I mean, I
lion,
can't complain about it because it's the moral thing to do. I mean, he's like, it's a lion. It's the course of natural evolution and natural selection. I mean, he's
exactly.
supposed to
He
be
has
eaten by a
lower
lion.
cognition. I have higher levels of cognition, so I would not consider a lion to be a moral actor. However, just like any like a person who has lower levels of cognition, because obviously I'm enlightened by my own light of ignorance, and because of naturalism and any type of natural facet of like natural law. Well, then, if I'm in the jungle, then I'm king. Whoever is the most cognitive and can be able to have the most amount of force within any type of evident facet, I'm just going to win. I'm just like I'm king of the jungle. Also if I can apply that back onto evident reality, just going out and just putting people into camps. Again, this is for hypothetical purposes only. I do not advocate for any such things whatsoever. But putting people into nice Jesus Christ camps. Let's put it that way.
Cozy
And
camps, just cozy Jesus Christ camps where we
yeah,
all hold hands
exactly. And they're
and read the
yeah, they're
Bible.
holy
And
men. Yeah,
if you try
they're
to
gonna
get
do
out,
that.
maybe you get spanked a little bit, but nothing too
Yeah, they're gonna get
serious.
spanked. Okay, and that's the issue, right? It's like, oh well, and then I win, like, oh well, I win, I've done it,
Yeah,
all my
and I mean,
enemies have converted. Let's put it that way. It's like, well,
like to
once you stand on top of a bunch of like people and dismiss a bunch of a bunch of like structure of reality because, well, because I say so, that doesn't mean it's true. And if you say, well, if you're saying, if you even grant that naturalism is true, which of course is then supposing that there isn't anything that is more than meets the eye in regards to what you could consider even nature, and it just rules out certain levels of structure or even attempts at certain classifications of some type of structure to then result in it being above nature. You can't even get into anything that is then above nature, which would result in your own cognition being above nature because it's just a natural facet of, or happenstance of nature as well, just like any other happenstance within nature.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I mean, in a physical capacity, if the only standard or measure of good that is objective, is just going to be a representation of things that are descriptively happening in reality in a physical capacity, in a physical representation, then moral positions, moral descriptions don't really, or particularly moral prescriptions, don't really have anything to do with a truth value proposition. They don't really have any truth values at all. If you say that I believe secular humanism to be the best model of society, that doesn't actually mean anything because that's not what nature is doing. You cannot say that with objectivity. In the atheistic, or let's say in the Matt Dillahunty framework, the ultimate standard of goodness and the only standard of goodness which can be justified logically as objective, possibly within his framework, would be whatever nature does. Okay, whatever happens, okay, that would be contained within what people want to do, whatever the fuck they want to do. It may be completely arbitrary, and whatever the descriptive state of affairs is, whatever the descriptive representation of the state of affairs is, that would be good because it is
the
representative of reality.
lions torturing torturing the other animal, that's totally fine, and we're also animals as well, so that seems like they, even though they have lower cognition, if I had lower cognition, then that would be okay, right? Because I have, let's say I somehow lowered my cognition to that of a lion, right? I don't have that much quote unquote reasoning capacity, so that means I'm not a moral actor anymore, and me going out and just hypothetically, okay, my cognition's lower, okay, in, let's say, a Minecraft server, let's put it that way, and I happen to be very retarded, in regards to, very slowed, let's put it that way. I guess we have to, censor certain words. So very slowed with my cognition, and because of that, it results in um me being equal to the lion in regards to, well, more certain types of, like, me not being a moral actor. And if I'm not a moral actor, then that means that me going out and torturing other animals or anything like that would then just be seen as like, oh, it just is what it is, no big deal. And they can't have any type of moral descriptive type of claim and say, okay, well, we need to educate people. Well, you can't educate a lion, nor can you educate someone who is too intellectually incapacitated to realize and bring them up to speed, at least in a in such a level to then make them understand. So what do you do with those types of people that do actually exist within society? Okay, at least one or two of those people exist. Oh, we could just put them into another society called like prison or jail. But then that other society then has to then be managed by other people. Well, all the people that are like for this type of philosophy is basically grab those people, put them in a different place that we don't see them. That's it. It's the same type of like elitist mindset of like, well, let's make homelessness illegal, or let's just make sure the rabble that is underneath my feet isn't in my way, so that I can continue to dominate. That's all that is. That's what this type of like mentality, somewhat leads to. It's just like these people that, and then they're like this fake altruist running around saying, "Oh, look, I'm a good person. Here's $1 to the cancer research or to some nice homeless shelter or something." But meanwhile, they're siphoning millions of dollars into their own bank account at the expense of other people. It's like, wow, great,
Yeah,
great,
I mean,
wondrous people over here with their philosophy.
Any
Okay,
secularist humanist representation of reality, any secularist humanist justification of secular humanism that is not predicated on the harm principle, it's ultimately going to result in an ad populum fallacy. Okay, well, why should we do X? Why should we promote secular humanism? Why should we establish it as the predicate
because everyone does
governmental
it.
force? It's like, because, well, it maximizes well-being for a lot of people. It's like, okay, well, what if it doesn't maximize well-being for most people who are religious, who don't perceive it to be the maximization of well-being, to have another kind of view that is not theirs established as the governmental predicate? It's like, well, it's better for them anyway. It's like, no, it's not. If you're not establishing the harm principle, then you can't really say that this is better for them if it is in opposition to their worldview. Why should we establish something as the default governmental format of policy and as the ethical standard of morality if most people don't believe it to be true in a physicalist framework? It's like, okay,
Look,
well,
look,
it's the
look,
harm principle.
look,
It's like,
look,
yeah,
Omni,
well, what
Omni,
is the
come on
justification for the harm
now.
principle?
As Matt Dillahunty would say, okay, you can't get an ought from an is, okay, okay,
Yeah, it's
Omni,
funny
all
that he
right.
says that because you actually can.
Whoa, that's a big claim. I require some evidence, sir. Could you give me that evidence? I'm not convinced.
You cannot have an is without an ought. You cannot have a description without a prescription, right? And the same way around. It's just they're
You can't.
logically they're logically idempotent, and they're also it's a dual aspect monism in the same way that info-cognition is a dual aspect monism necessary for perception or necessary for existence, right?
Well, hold on. Well, let's back that whole train up here. There's a lot of conceptual rigor here that we need to like dive into and explain. Like, what it. First off, let's slow down here. What is info-cognition? Is that like that sounds like some type of coupling of two words, info and cognition. So
True,
it's like
true.
that. So what does that coupling mean, and why is it coupled?
So info-cognition is basically, as you correctly pointed out, it's composite of two words that are used as a neologism, put together as a neologism: information, and in conjunction with cognition. The reason these two things are put together is because in the framework of the CTMU, info-cognition, putting these two together, is going to be the necessary predicate or the necessary requirement for any form of existence. Now, why are they coupled? Why are they put together? Why is it the case that in order for anything to be categorized as existent, or in order for anything to be existent, that this coupling must hold, that these two things must be synonymous, and not synonymous, but they must occur at the same time, and they must be self-reinforcing and reinforcing each other? Why? Well, it's because you can't have any informational content without a medium that perceives it and gives a representation of that concept. And likewise, you cannot have a medium of representation without a medium that allows for that representation to exist, right? So the medium that allows for the representation to exist, or allow for the medium to exist, it would be information, and the medium that allows for information to exist would be perception, so, or cognition rather. So it would be info-cognition. You can think of it as a coin with two aspects, but it's still one coin, right?
Right,
Two
I get
sides,
it.
one
Yeah,
coin. So
yeah.
that's
Two
what we
sides,
call
one
a
coin.
dual aspect monism.
Yeah, and I fundamentally agree with that. Right, even though there could be certain uh, aspects to reality, there's still just one. Like information, energy type of thing. Well, energy leaves out a lot of structure. Information also leaves out some structure. That's why the coupling of infocognition is it's just the marrying of two beautiful terms, information type of theory, and then of course more cognitive type of theories as well, and marrying the two into a reducible type of like predication of the existence of what like certain type of like metaphysical type of like backing of those words. Okay, and putting
Yeah.
those two together then results in being able to reconcile certain types of like issues within like Cartesian dualism as well. Okay.
Yeah, so
Because
basically the structure of the duality here itself is fulfilling missing points in the other side. It's fulfilling the missing components of a completely informational world, and it's an informational aspect fulfilling the missing points of a purely cognitive world. Because in a purely cognitive world, you don't have a reasonable justification as to why there is an instantiation of information, right? It's like, okay, if mind is all that which exists, if it is the fundamental thing, then how does information come out of the mind, right? And then you don't have a justification for that because you can't really demonstrate how exactly a piece of information or reality itself, in its initiation from the Big Bang, right? How does reality from cognition produce information? And the same way around, how does information produce consciousness? Because we have a correlation here, right? We have a concentrated array, or we have a concentrated instantiation of consciousness, so long as we understand it. But we cannot provide a causal relation between that and the information in which it is concentrated. So what it does is information. Well, you have to ask, what is the structure of information? Right? And in the CTMU, the structure of both information and cognition is going to be reducible to what? It's going to be reducible to a language, syntax, and a semantics, right? And so when you look at the syntax of cognition, what is it composite of? Right? It's composite of rearrangement. It's composite of telic recursion. All of these different attributes, right? And so these two things in coupling, they provide the service that is necessary for reality to self-actualize in order for reality to be real. And since the impossibility of reality not being real is true, then these two things, this duality, must ultimately be held.
Yeah, I agree. But well, let's try to suppose some type of like pushback. Let's say some type of atheist will say, well, no, I don't think that there can be like there can be there could be some type of like I can imagine a world in which there's no minds. What's the problem with that?
You can imagine a world in which there are no minds.
Yeah,
Okay, how would that world? What would that world look like?
just no minds.
As in, like, there is no mind to perceive the existence of such a world?
Yeah,
Then okay, so you're predicating a hypothetical on a mind-dependent property of attribution, the attribution of possibilities of a possible world, and you're saying that this possible world exists completely independent of the idea of attribution of a possible world, which entails a contradiction. You cannot have an attribution of a possible world without the necessary predicate which attributes the property of a possible world, right? So you're saying that X possibility exists, and if there is Y, and Y is a world which contains minds, and you're saying that Y entails that there is X world that entails that there is no Y. It's like that's not really a possibility. That's an impossibility.
I see. I see. Hmm.
So what would be
Okay.
the refutation to that? What would be the response to that?
Uh, I'll have to think about that one. That's actually a good one. That's a good response. Like if it fills like it fills in all those gaps. Well, maybe you're just here we go. Here's one. A bit more of a pushback.
Is it
Any
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but just one more point to that, just so for like an atheist listening or somebody like that that may not be convinced by the prior argument. It's like, well, any faculty of reason, any attribution of a hypothetical of that form would entail the necessity of a mind which provides that ability, which provides the ability of cognition and logical reasoning, right? So if you're saying that the conceptualization of possible worlds of modality, right? This is what modal logic is contingent upon. If you're saying that it is a necessity that in order for any propositions that represent modality to be true, that a mind exists, then it is not possible for there to exist any possible worlds in which it is not necessary that a mind exists. Okay? Because the necessity of the former entails the impossibility of the latter. Go on. Carry on.
okay. Yeah. Okay. Maybe that's knocked down, but let's put a little pin on that one and move on from something a new argument, a more pushback. What what would you say to this? The mind only contains mere representations of reality, not the evident reality that we actually can then understand. So we don't.
Mm.
So reality itself is merely inaccessible, even if there is some type of intelligibility that is opposed from some type of mind.
Could you repeat the latter part of that statement, the last part?
The Even if there isn't some type of intelligibility, there is um, um, okay, let me just go back to the whole first thing. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. So, what would you say to this? The mind only has mere representations of reality, and not the reality, the evident reality as it is.
Right.
And that results in reality, in essence, not being accessible.
Okay. So this is like the Kantian position. This is the
Yeah.
Kantian position of the distinction between the phenomena and the noumena, right? And the CTMU perfectly decapitates this idea, so to speak, um, in the first couple of pages of the CTMU, where it responds to different models of reality, and it disseminates the Kantian position metaphysically, in that if you're saying that a essence of reality, of the of what reality instantiates itself as, is necessarily incapable of being intelligibly understood as a part of the conception of reality that is necessary for human beings, which is only possibly accessible to human beings, then it can't be a essence of reality. It can't be the essential form of reality, and this is the reason why. If we say that there is no possible other representation of reality to a human being other than that of cognition, and the universal categories which Kant himself categorizes them as, right? Which
Yes.
Kant himself categorizes them as. If it is not possible for us to perceive reality or understand it or cognize it in any other way than we do with those given predicates, with those given presuppositions, then we can safely exclude the idea of a reality which is not predicated upon that from our understanding of reality, right? If a reality to us cannot possibly be conceptually or logically connected to that which dictates reality, to that which dictates to us whether something is representative of reality, then it can be safely excluded from our definition of reality. We can't describe a noumena. We can't describe something that we can't truly access, that it is impossible for us to access logically. If something is impossible for us to access logically, then it is not representative of reality, because in order for something to be representative of reality, it needs to be able to be represented logically.
Okay. That's a very mm, I'd push back on this one when it comes to like the distinction type of part. How are you making a distinction when there is only mere representations of reality in regards to how we're able to refer back to reality itself? Because I can
Well,
easily hold on, I can easily make the maps, but I don't match the territory. So how are you able to get to a map, but not uh, within your mind, but and also represent the territory itself?
well, that is the assertion, right? The assertion is that these are mere descriptions of a reality that we don't have access to. All right, that is an assertion, and assertions are exactly just that. Assertions. They're yet to be justified, right? In order for you to say that this assertion is true, it would have to be justified. How do you justify it? Logic. It's okay. Well, we relate this to the actual point that is being made, the assertion that is being made, which is the accusation, which is like, how can you say, or it is not good to say, or it is not right to say that this is the actual state of affairs of reality if you only have descriptions of it. It's like, okay, well, if reality itself is a set of descriptions of itself, and I am contained within reality, then yeah, the map does match the territory because they're composite of the same essence, syndifionically. If reality itself is necessarily going to be reducible to a language in order for itself to exist, and I'm using a language to describe it as part of a language, right, as part of the language that I'm describing, then yeah, the map does exactly match the territory. And that is what would be reducible to the universal language of the SCSBL, the coding of reality itself.
Right, well, let's go back to what was it?
Syndiffeonesis. I love how you're
Syndiffeonesis.
pretending like you don't know these things.
I don't know how to say it. I do know it. I just don't know how to say it. Like my tongue don't is not that
No, I know, but
uh
you're playing
that
devil's
fast.
advocate. It's fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Syndiffeonesis.
Syndiffeonesis or
What
Syndiffeonesis. I don't know how people say it differently.
Yeah, they have a little different,
I say
ways to.
Syndiffeonesis.
Okay, yeah, I would say Syndiffeonesis. uh,
Syndiffeonesis.
Syn Syndiffeonesis.
Eonesis.
Oh my god, bro.
Eonesis. Eonesis.
Make. Oh my god. Okay. I'm gonna get this word. I'm gonna get this word.
Syndiffeo, and then Nesis.
Syndiffeo Nesis.
Yeah,
Syndio
Syndiffeo.
Nesis. Syndiffeo Nesis. I got it. And
Yeah,
Syndiffeo
let's
Nesis.
go.
Let's go.
Congratulations. Let's
All
go.
right. Yeah, I've broken the
Who
80
said you
IQ
can't?
barrier.
Who said you can't comprehend the CTMU?
Apparently, lots of people has been saying,
Who didn't read
uh,
it?
yeah, who didn't read it and who are completely anonymous trolls, who have of course 3 PhDs,
Yeah,
so
all of
yeah,
them. Just it's weird, very weird that every single one of these critics has like 4 PhDs in fucking philosophy, math, and physics. It's just
wow,
very
like
weird.
damn, like could you tell me like what's one contradiction within the theory real quick, because obviously you have 3 PhDs, you have the
Well,
gargantuan levels of
firstly, I have
IQ.
4 PhDs. Okay, firstly, I
Oh,
have
oh,
4 PhDs, and
or
in academia, we use science. And if something is
oh yeah,
not
science, which is
scientifically represented in a peer-reviewed journal in physics, then
yeah,
it's
peer
not
reviewed. Okay,
correct.
you're my peer Omni, and I'm
Also,
and
also, my wife is my husband, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that
I'm not
descriptively.
convinced about that, but this is besides the point.
I
The
I'm yet to be convinced. I remain
Yeah, I'm not.
unconvinced.
I remain unconvinced about how much Matt Dillahunty's lover is his
But
husband,
I don't
but
want to talk
the
about Matt Dillahunty's lover anymore, please.
yeah, that's true. Like we should
I
stop
don't want to. I
obsessing
don't
over
want to put
that.
that image in my head.
We're perpetuating our internalized homophobia right now. We need to stop it. Okay. So, anyways,
Internalized?
the
No, it's extremely externalized. I do hate crimes every day. Internalized, yeah. That's for newbie pussies, bro.
you're externalizing it. You're
I'm ex-
externalizing
I'm
you're
externalizing.
externalizing your love.
I
Yeah,
make sure that every gay person knows how homophobic I am. It's externalized, bro.
they make you afraid of what you're gonna do to them. But yeah, anyways,
Okay,
the
yeah. Let's move
so
back to
yeah,
the
the
CTMU. What were we gonna say?
yeah, so syndionesis is quite the term that I've seen in some forums get somewhat right, somewhat wrong, here and there. What exactly would you say, you know, is that?
Syndiffeonesis is the idea, the metaphysical idea, ontological idea that in order for anything to exist, that or the distinction between things that exist is fundamentally reducible to a difference in sameness. So every single difference that can be distinguished between different things that are categorized as real are fundamentally related in something that they all have in common, something that they all share, in order for all of them to be intelligibly understood, in order for them to be cognized, in order for them to be
Yeah,
perceived.
it's kind of like well, let's say an object, right? Like this object, whatever it is, would have to if it's an orange or an apple, right? Usually that has some type of distinction. But
Yeah,
you're saying this concept is which is very advanced is saying that it's reducible to a same. Like okay, it has it's in the same reality. So and they're two objects. So there's still distinctions, a difference,
yeah.
but there's within the same type of medium that we would then call reality, and we
Sure,
agree
and
upon that.
I can put it in I can put it in a physical framework that
Yeah,
a genius atheist might be able to understand. Okay, so
yes, there.
imagine a world. Imagine this world. Imagine that this is the only possible world, and in this world, in order for something to be real or any real thing is composite of atoms. Okay, So if we're
Yeah.
saying that the only possibility of real things in their composition is to be made of atoms, right? If something were to be not made of atoms here, let's say there was a banana not made of atoms, then we would not be able to coherently and intelligibly, or it wouldn't be intelligible to us. It wouldn't be able to be understood. It wouldn't be able to be conceptualized. We wouldn't be able to perceive it. Okay, because the medium
Mhm.
by which we perceive things is the composition of them, being that of matter fundamentally reducible to atoms and subatomic particles therein, right? If that is the necessity for any existent thing to be the composition of which it is the composition, right? Then we can't have something that is like a banana that is made of atoms and a banana that is not made of atoms, and both of them be real at the same time. We wouldn't be able to intelligibly understand the second kind of banana because it is not made of the same thing that is necessary for us to understand real things. Okay, so the same idea is extensive to Syndiffeonesis in a metaphysical capacity. We're saying that in order for something to be perceived as real, right, there must be a unary relation between them, a sameness, a commonality that gives them the ability to be intelligibly understood. And in the CTMU, that is going to be info-cognition.
Right. Everything is built into each other and between each other and interconnected. Like everything is
Right,
interconnected in regards
right, right,
to
right.
these different conceptualizations and modeling type for modeling type of purposes. So,
Of course,
so
yeah.
well, that's great. We're getting I'm getting some more understanding about this Cosmos Ray model of the universe here. Um, and so again, the atheists are gonna really who have never read any philosophy a day in their life and actually never read the CTMU.
Of course they have, bro. They've read Christopher Hitchens. I mean,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, that which is asserted without evidence it can
and
be
God
dismissed
is
without
not.
evidence.
Haven't you read God is not great, bro? Or
But that
the
doesn't mean
God
wait, hold on.
delusion?
Yeah, oh wait, yeah, yeah. I love the God delusion. You know, I
These
caught
are like two
the
of the
God
greatest
delusion.
philosophers of our time, man. Richard
Yeah,
Dawkins and Christopher
yeah.
Hitchens. What are you talking about?
The rebuttal is who created God. And well, within the CTMU, it actually answers that himself.
Duh, but who created God?
It's always it's this atheist bingo. Let's play the atheist bingo. It's like basically
But but
I don't
if
need
God
God.
real, why bad thing happen? Why child with cancer if God real and God is good?
Well, yeah, we have to actually provide some type of account. They think that they here's the problem. I'll just call it the problem of atheism. Okay, the problem of atheism goes something like this: before you existed, there was non-existence, and after you exist, there's non-existence. So why do you exist? And they'll go, oh, because my parents banked. Well, that's not an answer. You're just pushing the can down the road. That's not an answer. Okay, you're just moving the goalpost. Why do you exist? Oh well, why do they exist? Oh well, because their parents banked. Their parents banked. Wow, cool. So why does life exist? I was like, well, because there's these chemical reactions. Okay, why? Why does chemical reactions happen? Oh, well, why
Well,
did
you
the Big
can
Bang
just
happen?
ask: is there any
And they,
necessary state of affairs that upon which your existence is dependent? If they say yes, and you have, then you ask, well, what is the justification for that state of affairs? What is the justification for that necessary state of affairs? And they're probably not going to have any because they're an atheist.
right, they're gonna be like, I don't know, I don't know, but it
Um,
can't be God.
or the universe always existed.
Wait. You're appealing to something that always existed. Okay, so it's eternal. Uh huh. Is this a universe is present right now, like always present throughout this medium that we call the universe? They're like, yeah, does it have all energy? All energy required is could be considered to be all power. Okay,
Yeah, I
cool.
mean, it's
Does
a
it have all
fallacy.
information? Oh, hold on. Is it all information? Like, yeah, it has all information that it ever will and could be. Okay, so let's just go with the universe, just the word universe, which is the set of all existent things, right? And it has these certain attributes of having all energy, it has all information, and it is always present. Wow, we have at least a basic definition of what a lot of people consider just to be God. Okay, so then and then they're like, well, even if that is God, it can't be conscious. So how would you respond to someone who is like, well, I've gotten to like deism or some type of
Theism.
God concept, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that is actually God, bro. how would you respond to that? Someone like
Okay,
that.
well, firstly, the important thing is that the atheist has this conception of a lot of atheists use this argument of eternality as a reference to what the universe is. Well, the universe is eternal. The universe is eternal. It's like, well, in accordance to the definition of a universe, no, it is not. Okay? If we define a universe correctly, which is the set of all things that are real, that conform
Yep.
to the laws of physics and etc., the laws that make the ability for these things that have the capacity to be categorized as real, right? It didn't exist pre the Big Bang. So the universe, in that accurate description, was not actually present before the Big Bang. So that definition itself collapses. Okay? Now, as to the idea of certain deists or atheists saying that even if a God existed, that wouldn't mean that that the reality is conscious or that God is conscious. Which one are you claiming?
Oh, that's a good distinction. I would say from some of the people that I've interacted with that reality is conscious. Go with that.
Okay, so the criticism is that we don't have a justification as to why we think that reality is conscious, okay, or we don't have the ability to demonstrate that reality is conscious. It's like, okay, well, how could you possibly demonstrate that reality is conscious? Okay, well, you would have to demonstrate that in order for reality to be real, that it must have some conscious-like attribute that is distributed upon every possible thing or identity that can be categorized as a part of reality. Okay, and this is attributed to everything that is categorized as a part of reality. So, how do you actually make that connection? How do you make that distinction? It's like, okay, again, how do we confirm that anything is existent or real? What does our conception of reality or a real identity depend on? Well, existence is the distinction of an identity from that which it is not. Distinction of the possibility of an identity from the possibility of that which it is not. Okay? And so that is going to be dependent on what? Information that makes the cognition possible and cognition that makes the information possible. And if that is the case for the human mind, and uh, the human mind gives you a justification as to why things can't be existent purely dependent on information alone or purely dependent on cognition alone, then again, referring back to our conversation of info-cognition, then reality must have both of these attributes in coupling. So it is both informational and cognitive in coupling. These two reinforce each other in order for a real distinguishable identity to be that which it is, a real distinguishable identity. Okay, so reality is conscious in the way that it wouldn't exist without cognition, and cognition necessitates consciousness or self-reference, or in the minimal justificatory pathway. If we take the minimalist justificatory pathway here to say that in order for reality to be real, in order for reality to be categorized as conscious, it must contain at least one conscious entity. There exists at least one conscious entity, therefore reality is conscious to at least some degree, right?
Yes. That would be like some type of you could call it like God's a solipsist or something. So like it would result in it in and it's like well and then it's not that the atheist has no counter to any type of like hard solipsist type of position.
Yeah, of
So to
course not.
distinguish like yeah, so to distinguish like some soft or hard or even divine type of solipsist type of position, let's define our terms, of course. A soft solipsist would be basically someone who's like all the which is um can can only be evident of the mind, and I'm unsure of other minds to exist, and the only thing that I can be sure of is my own mind to exist. Um, I'd be
Yeah,
more of a soft solipsist type of deal. A hard solipsist, you know, type of person would say it's an impossibility for any other mind to exist. Okay.
yeah,
And number two, and it's an impossibility to get outside of my own mind, and everything else is then predicated on my own mind. Once I'm like gone away, I will either cease everything that I know and everything that can be and will cease to exist because I created all of that which is. That would be more of a hard solipsist position. And you can see it's quite very stubborn and possibly you could argue there is some mental problems that could arise with that type of view.
Yeah.
So, and then within like the CTMU is called, there's this thing called distributed solipsism,
Yeah.
where basically what you were talking about with like the consciousness is distributed within any type of point within space and time to have any type of relevancy of identification. Identification requires information and cognition. So, in order for there to be any object to then realize itself to then be real in any evident capacity, for there to be the set of existent things, it would have to relate back to itself. And because it's self-referential, coherent, and it's reflexive enough to then result in it being able to and also self-justifying in regards to its own content, then that means it is then cognitive, or some
Okay,
type of
wait.
cognitive.
Just quick sidebar. Oh, actually, okay, never mind. I thought I was making a recording mistake. Fuck it. Go.
Yeah, no worries. So, like I was saying, um, when so that would result in atheism, which denies that there is some type of supreme being. The supreme means some type of like absolute authority, maximally great, all these different types of like things. Okay,
Yeah.
or maximum importance. Okay, they deny that, since reality, or at least this one conscious being, is of maximum importance to result in creating the different states of affairs of what we're able to then see. Then that means that they wouldn't then they wouldn't be the conscious being, that
Yeah.
and they wouldn't have the structure of reality to be presented in such a way that they could be wrong about it. So that means that they are not neither a hard solipsist or even a solipsist. They're just wrong. Because and it results in entails a contradiction. So here's the contradiction within atheism. Since there is no supreme being, then that means there's no supreme being for there to be any evident structure or for reality to present itself in such a way that results in me being able to even have any elementary cognitive categories for me to even relate back to reality. That means I'm just saying irrational stuff, or I have no justification to then say that there is no supreme being or supreme mind or something like that, because I'm still appealing to some type of mind, aka even my own. So even if you try to say that you're not a hard solipsist or even a soft solipsist, you can't negate distributed solipsism and or a divine solipsist type of take, because that would result in you negating your own cognition, and that entails a contradiction of evident reality and your own. It would result in it reduces to an absurdity. Okay,
Right. So
not only
you're
is it
saying
reduced to absurdity.
you're equating the solipsist position with the aggregate of the person's positions philosophically, like their metaphysical positions. So if they hold the case that that nothing external to their thoughts and beliefs can be real, and that there's a contradiction between them holding that position and their ability to justify that um, a let's say a divine solipsist position is true, or a distributed solipsist position is true, then their position is negated. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, like basically both of those positions results in collapsing their position to irrationality and absurdity. It doesn't work. It doesn't actually have any content, and it's even incoherent. You don't even have any meaning to reality at that point. Reality would just be uninteresting to study, or we wouldn't have any motivating factor to have any evidence of, because reality wouldn't be important, since anything outside of myself would just not be important. So everything's inside my mind, as like a hard solipsist would say. So that means that since everything is within my own mind, then I don't really care about anyone else. Everyone else is just merely a happenstance or a fiction. So I don't care about anyone else other than myself. So and the defeater for hard solipsism is not just arguing against it, but then taking certain types of conclusions from it and realizing that there are other minds that are evident within reality, and there is a medium which it has presented in such a way that you have been able to. The medium is absolutely true. Your elementary cognitive categories, or at least is in some ways absolutely true in regards to referencing reality, and but because you were constantly prior reality was possibly prior to you, then you're not the guy. Okay, you're not the one. Okay, at least when it comes to space time distinctions. Okay, our highest level of identity is God, but that doesn't mean that we are we have we're just merely parts of the evident reality of the supremacy of being. So there's one supreme being that evidently exists, and that's reality. Okay, which you could say reality is within the mind of God, or reality is the mind of God. There can be some very interesting nuances there as well with that wording. Okay,
Yeah.
but so the atheist position will say there is no God. Okay, or the anti-theist position will say that there cannot be a God. Okay, or it could be even religion itself is even harmful to people's cognition, which is not true. It's actually the opposite. But as we can see within all these different places that have tried to affirm some type of atheistic type of like worldview, like there is no God and act as if there is no God, it resulted in quite heavy amounts of wars. Okay, now we could take the aggregate of all the type of religious type of wars and grant that to the atheist and even the anti-theist, and even supposing people were fighting and granting that they did kill in the name of their god or something like that. It doesn't negate God to even exist, and because of how people abuse their own willingness to do certain types of actions. But
Yeah.
the anti-theist would have to then affirm that there is no God in order to then go out and then, because there's no morals, there's no arbiter other than myself, all these different types of things. It's just in regards to that kind of like worldview. And we can evaluate these types of worldviews not only on a historical level, but on a logical level, because we have enough evidence in the historical like record of these types of people and their behaviors, and we can then model it. We have enough evidence to model it now because we have computers that can do the more background type of information that would then reduce the amount of bias that I could easily put into that type of system. Okay,
Yeah.
so that means that we can then produce true or false values in regards to these types of views. We can model these worldviews and see, okay, is this accurate of reality? And atheism is not accurate reality. Anti-theism is not accurate reality. Agnosticism is just purely ignorant of reality, so they don't know in either direction if there is a God or isn't one. And certain types of theism is just like an agnostic. They don't really know like God, so sadly they are it's quite inadequate to then affirm some type of God unless they have some type of logic and not merely just some copium or hopium in regards to what you would consider to be faith. Well, faith and knowledge is coupled, just like what Chris Lagan said. It's faith and knowledge is coupled. You have to then know what you're putting your faith into, or else what are you doing? You
Yeah.
just blowing smoke up your own ass, right? Just like what the atheists and the anti-theists are saying, like, oh wow, you're playing pretend. Okay, like that is that's quite the you know quite the legitimate criticism on the more antithetical type of position. Okay, and I used to be quite the militant atheist. I used to be that type of person that would have that type of criticism. Okay, I'd be like, why are they doing these things? That doesn't make any sense. When you actually understand a bit more of the structure of reality, the structure of reality is in such a way that it has presented itself that it cannot be false. And since there's no evident contradiction that can ever be that can never contradict reality, that means basically you can't contradict God.
Yeah.
So so like that would result in God existing. Since there's no evident contradiction within God, that means that okay, I can personally contradict myself all day and night. Okay, but that doesn't mean I contradict God.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a distinction there instead of that type of relationship. And God's not going to look at your contradictions. He's not going to affirm that. God's going to maintain his integrity. He's not going to look at your nonsense and your amoral actions and all kinds of nastiness. You have to truly, get God to recognize what you're doing and establish that type of relation. It's not just like oh I'm sorry, and oh yeah, now you're forgiven, bro. No, it's like unless there's some type of like revelatory experience, you're there is not. You have to like realize like on a fundamental level, like how your cognition is needing realignment with basic levels of reality, or else you could just become some type of like go into some psychotic state or something and cause huge amounts of mental illness. As we could see, just affirming that there is no God and going out and in the way, you could see the mental illness going up. And of course, there's lots of other issues as well with like lots of chemicals and the water actually turning frogs
Yeah, turning frogs
hermaphroditic.
homosexual. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
like
So,
the the idea of refinement, the idea of, hey God, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna do it again, and therefore God should, accept me, and then He must change the trajectory of my life, and I should become a millionaire now, and I should have a happy family just because I apologize and shit like that. I should
oh
have my
boy,
harem,
that's
and it'd be justified. I can have my 4 wives. It doesn't actually work like that. Believe it or not, it doesn't. The way that it works is that you have to demonstrate to God, you have to demonstrate to the global operator descriptor that is responsible for overseeing reality to see, okay, which of my telors are maximizing self-identification and which of them are doing that which is minimizing my self-identification, right? If you're a telor that consistently, if somebody that is watching the video or the podcast that doesn't know what a telor is, let's just say a conscious agent that is responsible for maximizing the existence of God and maximizing the identification of God, understanding the existence of God. Let's say that's what a telor is. Okay? If God looks down, in an anthropomorphized way, okay, so to speak, just hypothetically, if God were to look down at his telors and see those that are doing immoral behavior and then they apologize for it, that's not actually sufficient to demonstrate to God that that's the kind of telor, that's the kind of agent that is not going to minimize God's self-identification again. Well, what would be required to demonstrate that to God is by actually being the kind of telor that wouldn't minimize the self-identification of God, and that would be making active behavioral changes, right? And that would be like doing good things, right? Like not uh don't fuck kids, like Matt Dillahunty says, don't do that. Don't
yeah.
don't do bad shit, right? Don't lie. Don't do things that are not consistent with the integrity and the idea and the characteristics of God. Okay? And once you start moving in a trajectory like that, that's when God is going to take notice of you as a telor that is going to potentially or possibly be forgiven for the past misgivings that they might have had. Okay, that's because that's when you've demonstrated to God that you're a telor that is capable of not minimizing the self-identification of God, and you're dedicated to that.
Okay, okay. So that gets into like this, being able to be forgiven type of thing, and we have a limited amount of self forgiveness, right? We have a ability to like forgive ourselves for there's some smaller misdeeds and stuff. Sure, we have that ability to have that power, or even forgive others, but we still require like the structure of reality. Isn't it has presented itself in such a way that if you try to negate other people's will, for example, let's say it is a Omni, right? I go over, we go over, I go over to your house. I don't know where you live, okay? But let's say I go over to your house, okay?
Okay.
And I chain you to the radiator, okay? Hypothetically, of course.
Right.
and I chain you to the radiator. That's impeding on your will, okay? And I'm saying my will is superior to yours. Well, that's not evident of reality within the structure of reality, within your own cognition. That's just not evident, okay?
Yeah.
And because that's not evident, that's not true of reality. So that would result in a misalignment to the fundamental structure of reality itself. Okay,
Okay.
so that means that would just not be good to do. Okay,
Yeah.
regardless of my pure personal preference to go and tie you up or beat you or whatever, right? But my personal preference, I prefer my personal preference is to go out and glorify my atheist betters by making sure Omni here. I go over to his house and chain him to a radiator and say, "Don't speak anymore. Get off the podcast. You're really mentally ill. You need to have 15 different types of drugs in your system so
It's
you
so
you
true.
stop thinking about this whole God that is, of course, a complete and utter delusion. Come on now, um, you got to realize that God's a delusion. Okay, like page 153 of the Atheist Bible from Christopher Hitchens and with commentary from Richard Dawkins. Okay, have you read the Atheist Fathers, the Fathers of Atheism? Have you read them? Have you read them? No,
You
you
know,
haven't.
one
Of course
day,
not.
one day I
They're great.
looked online and I searched for the atheist Bible because I thought if there's a Christian Bible, there must be an atheist Bible. And I saw this
Yeah.
website, it said the atheist Bible. I clicked on it and it was literally just gay porn. It was like literally gay and tranny porn. I didn't know if this was what atheism was, but I suppose, I mean, I guess That's my understanding of the matter. But
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
back to
that's
you.
atheism. Yes, atheism right there. While some theists could swing the other way, so to speak, sure, but atheism is on the rise apparently. So it's just like transgenderism. They're transitioning, from one thing to another. Um, so if they, I always think about like trying to think about God's identification. I'm trying to like, okay, how do I do that? What am I supposed to do? Right? Let's say I'm ignorant and obviously really dumb. I have very low IQ, of course, than my atheist betters. But that are going to be in the comment section of this amazing video. Who it's just going to, as soon as they hear the word God, they're gonna pause the video, immediately go into the comment section and go, God not real, and then they go, I've shown them, I've shown those delusional idiots on this little podcast, they don't know what they're talking about. I have 4 PhDs.
Yeah.
So, but when it comes to any type of like, well, when it comes to illusions, delusions, or hallucinations, all those are states of consciousness. So, or even like you're tripping balls on acid or something, that's still again another state of consciousness. So, you're still not negating any type of like God concept, and that's number one. And number two, you're not even negating the ability for there to be any type of like emotional relief from a God concept itself as well, which then it provides evidence for it to then be socially acceptable to then worship God. So anti-theism out the window, right there. Doesn't mean it's real, by the way. But I just said that based on the social conditions, okay, and the evidence of that to result in relieving certain emotional problems and and having a consistent type of society where people are like, oh man, big sky daddy. Oh, I said sky daddy.
Yeah.
Is gonna spank me. Okay, then there's some certain psychopath who has low IQ but doesn't realize like it's all fake, bro. Doesn't go out and start murder,
Yeah.
raping, and pillaging a bunch of people. That's a fucking good thing.
Yeah,
That's a fucking good thing.
I'm gonna mention something, and I hate the fact that I have to. It's funny actually that I keep recursively going back to Matt Dillahunty as the punching back of a good point. I keep mentioning a debate in which Matt Dillahunty is the recipient of an amazing point, and he's getting his fucking ass kicked. So in a debate with Andrew Wilson brought this up as a fantastic counterpoint to Matt's proposition that secular humanism is the best possible model of society, right? And he said, well, if secular humanism is the maximization of human well-being, who are you to say that Christianity is not the maximization of well-being if people believing in Christianity, if people believing in the Christian God, or people just believing in God at the minimalist form of the argument is demonstrably better for them according to them themselves, and they outweigh numerically atheists a lot more. Who are you to say that that is not the actual good kind of the maximization of well-being? That is not the ideal maximization of well-being, right? By your own standard, that would be the best kind of maximization of well-being, even if God didn't exist. These people believing in it seem to be having way better of lives than people who believe in whatever the fuck you believe in. Okay, and if human well-being is the standard for goodness here in this moral framework, goodness is the standard for or well-being is the standard for goodness. Well, in order to maximize well-being, if that is the axiom, in order to be able to maximize well-being, you must have the capacity, or you must maximize the capacity for there to be well-being. Okay, well, how do you do that? Reproduction. Well, what do you have when you have more people? The maximization of more possibility of maximizing well-being. You have more well-being. You have more potential of well-being if you have more people. Okay, well, you see, which system produces the most people to have the most well-being? It's like, it's not an atheistic society. It tends to be heavily dominated by religious societies that produce the most amount of people, that produce the most amount of children, that are the most reproductively heavy. Okay, so in accordance to this notion of well-being as the standard of goodness in the secularist humanist framework, more particularly of that of Matt Dillahunty's, okay, which is the predominant one in that atheistic sphere, then it would necessarily entail a world wherein secular humanism is not the foundation for a worldview, wherein secular humanism is not the foundation for governance or any kind of morality.
Right. So the yeah, and the second the more glaring issue is that if this was evidently true, then why haven't we discovered it in the past, let's say 2000, 4000, 6000, well, however long human history has been writing things down, and even within oral
Well,
traditions as well.
well, Matt
Why hasn't it been?
Dillahunty's ancestors were too busy surviving because it was good and shit, you know? I think that's what
Oh,
they were doing. That's
right,
what they were
right.
busy
I
doing.
defeat it right now. That is a great rebuttal. That is totally not a justification at all for anything coherent. But let's just suppose that it is coherent and has any type of meaningful like justification, and just granting it to him. Cool. His ancestors, his monkey ancestors, were surviving. Okay. Better than other people. Well, then who are the people that died? Oh, we'll talk about those people. Okay. Like because those people were considered to then be evil by that definition. You were evil. So good and evil actually exist.
Yeah.
So it's evil to not survive. So me going out and uh slaughtering people is not good. It's not a good thing. Ubiquitously is not good. So okay. So there would then be so in order to so everyone needs to survive. So every psychopath that kills people, every pedophile, just taking it to the logical conclusion, it's like, oh well, we need to make everyone survive. Well, no, not
But
necessarily.
not to me
Well,
because I don't like their survival. I think their survival bad.
what?
Me think
Okay,
their survival bad. Me don't like rapists and murderers.
why?
Well, because they don't produce a secular humanist society in which I get to have, you know, gay sex and Mountain Dew and shit like that, you know?
All right, yeah, it's kind of like religion is just a control mechanism. While they're literally like have a Pornhub fucking T-shirt and a Mountain Dew and a body pillow with an ambiguously aged anime girl, and it's like, yeah, I don't. Do you not like see the irony of what you're like trying to espouse right now? Like, it
Yeah,
just
it's like it's the notion that putting constraints on human desires is like a bad thing. It's like that's what secular humanism is, dumb fuck. It's like, oh well, but we're talking about necessary restrictions. It's like, okay, who are you to say that these restrictions are necessary? It's completely arbitrary for you to say. It's just something that you made up because you believe it to be of the maximization of your well-being that
look,
people work in
look,
confluence in a social contract to provide you with the services that you need. Right?
come on.
Purely egoist. It's purely arbitrary. It doesn't have any justification for it. Tell me why I don't get to maximize a society in which I, without the necessity of the consent of the opposing party of the sexual recipient, I get to do what I want to do. Okay, please tell me why. Please tell me why objectively.
They want because it harms them and it makes them feel bad. So don't do
Well,
that.
it doesn't harm me and it makes me feel good. And I have an incentive to maximize that which makes me feel good.
Damn it, you're so right. I don't have a defeater for that. So I'm just going to say you're you're very mean. You're
But
a very mean
well,
person.
let's
You're
think about
mean.
but but
Okay?
but let's think about it
You're
like
mean.
this. It's like we're playing chess. We're playing chess. And if you don't agree with me on the rules, then you're playing a different game. You can choose to not play the game, but within my game you're wrong. It's like, okay, but what the fuck what kind of meaning does that have to do with anything? Right? Okay, so you have a made up game of chess. This is how Matt Dillahunty represents it, by the way. It's like his morality is a game of chess. And if you disagree with his game of chess, right, then you're wrong in accordance to his game of chess. It's like, okay, but what does it actually mean to be wrong then if your game of chess is fucking arbitrary? It doesn't mean jack shit, right? It means jack shit. It doesn't mean anything. Yeah, reference point is getting a call from Matt Dillahunty right now threatening to bomb his house, but he's going to be back with us shortly. Okay.
Minecraft, okay? Like, come on now.
In GTA 5 and Call of Duty. I don't think there's bombs in Minecraft, but I'm sure there's like the Islamic
There's
there's
TNT.
like an
There's
Islamic server,
TNT.
surely.
They have self implosion. They for some reason they stop connecting after a while.
Yeah, it's like
So
Steve is modded as a fucking creeper.
as soon as there's like two towers, as soon as there's two towers, you build them. For some reason, there's like an airplane mod, and
Yeah,
it's
and they're like for
it
some
happens.
reason the creepers are brown.
Stop. Hey, creepers are actually green. Okay, stop being
No,
creeperist.
no, but in
Okay,
the
stop
Islamic
being
mod, that's
creeperist.
not how it is. Okay. Anyway,
Islamic mod. All they have is
just
basic
kidding. We
algebra.
actually, I want to say this thing in favor of Islam because in opposition to all the other fucking worldviews, Islam is pretty fucking based. Okay, I'll say that much.
Okay, I mean, they did just continuously go on a war path, and anyone who didn't convert just got beheaded or killed or sent into slavery. I mean, it works apparently. Just dominate your foes, and anyone who disagrees with you, you kill them, and it works. It's a good
Isn't that
model.
pretty much every religion on the face of the earth, though?
How dare you say that? Okay, don't you say that, right? You don't know. Like, come on now. You
Yeah,
got to be favorable towards the religion.
true.
Oh man. But yeah, like every religion has its downsides, including anti-theism and atheism. I wouldn't say it's religious. I would say it's just they're trying to provide some type of coping mechanism. It's like, oh well, the only reason you believe in God is because you fear death, and it's like, well, before you existed, there was non-existence. Before after you exist, there's non-existence. So like, why do you exist? Oh right, shouldn't there be more non-existence? That's a logical conclusion. Just take that whatever you will. I'm not advocating for any such things
Yeah,
or
well, I
or
mean,
implying any such things. But like just think about that. Like it results in like this atheist philosopher. Again, I condemn this atheist philosopher. I'm not going to name him, okay? Because I don't want you going out and actually being deluded by this type of person's works. But and again, I condemn this to the lowest pits of hell. And he said that the height of atheist philosophy, okay, was this. Okay, and he's an older type of guy. He's like his 40s or 50s or something, and he's pontificating about reality, and it's like, well, before I existed, there's non-existence. After I exist, there's non-existence. And then because there should be more non-existence, so that means that why ought I not kill myself right now? That's the big question of atheism. It's like, wow, holy shit! Like, as soon as I read that, I just was like, yeah, that
but like,
gave me
listen,
just a
if
little
you
bit of
kill
doubt.
yourself as an atheist, then that dissolves you of the ability to tell theists that they're like stupid for being a theist. So, if it is moral for you to tell theists as an atheist that they're fucking stupid and that God not real though debate because like bad things happen, then it's wrong for you to kill yourself because then that debilitates you from being able to, tell the theists how fucking stupid they are, right?
Exactly. So you should actually continue to live, and that type of philosophy is completely and utterly wrong. But then that would then suppose there's some type of value, whether it's made up or intrinsic. We have to figure that out. But whatever it is, then that means that it precludes some type of atheistic outlook. Then that means that atheism would then just be like flawed or fundamentally wrong. Why
Yeah.
aren't we just agnostic, bro? Like, just we don't know about this whole God ordeal. That would actually be more honest. But then
Yeah.
again,
I mean, the only people that are atheistic, let's just say that they have an atheistic temperament ideologically, um, that are of some, or that are above 85 IQ at most, right? Are those that are
mhm,
agnostic atheists. Those are that are like actual people that deny the existence of God, that affirmatively deny the existence of God, that make the proposition that it is true as a matter of fact that God does not exist. Those
by the
people
way,
are
anti-theist.
sub 85 IQ.
Yeah, those people would be not mentally healthy. I would say, because if you're an anti-theist, I've had other because I used to be an anti-theist and blasphemer, hating God, but I can dream up hundreds of hilarious fictional villains that murder, raped, and killed all kinds of people and hundreds of. I just dreamed up a villain that killed 100 billion people, right? And let's suppose that there's only 85 billion people that has ever lived throughout all of humanity. Yeah, literally, I just dreamed up a villain that killed 100 billion people right now. Why aren't you hating this villain? It's like you don't have any of that emotional upheaval. You don't know about this type of like concept inside my head. So if God was merely just made up in people's heads, then there wouldn't be any emotional upheaval when like God commands evil, or God is a big meaty head because he it's like because so if he was completely and utterly non-existent, then you wouldn't have that emotional upheaval. But because you have that emotional upheaval, because God says, hey, don't be a gay, don't be a gay, you know, or in the amazing interview, why are you gay?
Why
Who says I am gay?
you
Why are
are
you gay?
gay?
You are gay. It's a
Yeah.
great, brilliant interview. I love that interview. So, like, if
True
for some reason
literature.
all these other gods, they're like, oh well, I don't know about these other gods, but I definitely know this god that says, gay equals wrong is completely wrong. It can't exist. Oh, okay. But all these other gods, they don't like. Well, maybe it's a maybe, but this god can exist. Oh, but the different criteria for that one. Well, why is that? What's the evidence for that? Because you're making a positive claim. And it's not just a mere negative claim that you can just scurry away and just say, oh, well, the burden of proof is on the person making the positive claim. Yeah, burden of proof is making on the positive claim. There is no God. Okay, that's a positive claim. Could you give me some evidence in favor of that position, like an argument? All I hear is emotional reasoning, begging the question, special pleading, some type of God out of existence, or special pleading some God kind of God into existence. So why aren't you agnostic? Since it collapses into absurdity on both sides. So why aren't you agnostic instead of some weird anti-theist or even some type of atheist trying to affirm that there is no God? Well, what's the issue? Oh,
Yeah.
you're agnostic, but you're leaning towards atheism. So that's why you put these oxymoronic definitions together and say you're agnostic atheist. Okay, so you're just an idiot that doesn't know whether you're right or wrong. Cool. About the proposition that God exists. So, so we can just dismiss your opinion, and because that which is observed without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. Goodbye. You're not a part of the conversation anymore unless you want to be a part of the conversation. Then you need to actually put a stake in the it's put your feet in the water, not just dip your toe in and then take it out and go, oh, I don't know, bro. How about you immerse yourself in the conversation, actually understand what reality is even about, and instead of just mindlessly just watching 12 hours of cat videos. I watch 12-hour cat videos. I in case you want to attack me about hypocrisy. 12 hours of cat videos. Why don't we reduce it to 11 hours and 55 minutes? Spend 5 minutes every day just educating yourself. You have the whole sum of human knowledge at your fucking fingertips, and you could easily pirate about 50% of those books.
We don't
Okay,
do that. We don't do that.
you could, but we don't do that. You could. I don't advocate for piracy. Please support all of those amazing people that write those books. Okay,
Pay
please do
rich
that.
people more money.
Yeah,
Do
yeah,
that.
yes, yes. Obviously, they need another solid gold toilet, and to make people reduce the amount of wages they have, actually, so they can get even more richer. Okay, so definitely do that. And buy their books that have only like 1 or 2 pages that are completely irrelevant to any type of like reality or something, and the rest is just fluff to pad their ego. So yeah, totally cool. I really want you to to purchase these courses and pages. Meanwhile, the CTMU is completely free. It is the most comprehensive 50 in the 52-page paper, and there's a couple other papers as well. Again, free, that you can read, that gives you the most in-depth metaphysical framework that can ever possibly be written down. That is basically written in damn stone that will never be superseded. And it makes some very bold claims and actually proves those bold claims with very bold logic and the structure of that
Hmm.
logic to then result in producing absolute truth.
Yeah,
And
I
if
mean,
anyone
with enough
produces
thought,
absolute truth,
yeah, with enough thought and reflection, uh, anybody can arrive at the CTMU. Like literally, anybody can arrive at the CTMU with enough philosophical introspection. And the reason for that being is that you actually can just ask yourself a question or a multitude of questions about every single possible thing that you could question, right? Reality wise, why do you exist? What is the purpose of reality? How can you demonstrate that your consciousness is real? How do you demonstrate that you're the only mind that is real or existent, right? How do you know if something is true? How do you know if something is false? You can just keep asking yourself questions and like that over and over and over again. And depending on each varying answer to every single one of these questions, you can create one massive flowchart, and eventually it will lead you to a system that is going to be synonymous to the truth value of the propositions that are contained within the CTMU. And there's not going to be that much of a delineation between the two. Okay, with enough introspection, it is completely possible for anybody to do that.
Yes, yeah, I do believe that as well. And like, and just to add more insult to injury with atheists and anti-theists, who are affirming that there's no God. Let's put this in perspective. 8 elephants go over and take the little black flower, and they are seen crying. Whether they have a subjective emotional experience, we don't necessarily know, but we could suppose that on more external type of features of observation. And there has been documented. And just in case you're like, oh, this is a biased theistic propaganda. No, all these people are secular humanists, secular scientists. Most of them don't really affirm God. Some of them may be even pantheists or something. Like, oh, they affirm some of their God, but not necessarily a conscious one or something. Okay. So, just in case I'm appealing to some type of biased source or something. And they observed that these animals, one of the animals was an elephant that would go over and would weep over the dead, and would get these flowers and then go over and do like a little ritual. So literally, there is a basis within nature to weep over the dead. Whereas atheists are just saying, well, that person's just dead, so what? They're just a bunch of atoms that just happen to exist, so what? Within atheism and anti-theism and even naturalism as well, it's like within naturalism, it's like, well, there's a natural under naturalism. Then, if you observe these types of animals weeping over the dead and giving flowers, there's certain types of natural type of inclinations towards some type of higher being that will then that's evident enough to that even other animals are weeping and handing flowers to the dead. But then that means there's some type of something more than just that meets the eye that to even nature itself. But we can't.
Yeah.
But that's even within nature, naturalism as well. So like, okay, naturalism may not necessarily be all that which is, but we can still say that we can't exclude that type of thing. We have to then include it.
Yeah.
So that right there is just more evidence in favor of theism, because if the theism was completely wrong, then there wouldn't be any natural inclinations. Hold on.
Yeah, he's getting another call from the police. Unrelated matters, of course. Don't not to worry about. He'll be with us again shortly. But yeah, I mean, naturalism is just like at this point, it's just a punching bag of metaphysics. I mean, nobody that is serious in this and any community of philosophy actually takes naturalism seriously for that very reason that it's a fucking joke. That's completely inconsistent, doesn't have any implications metaphysically or logically, or just in a peripherally reality related way, just in any shape, way, or form that you can have a conception of reality. It's just not relevant. It's not consistent. It's not descriptive. It doesn't have any logical implications. So, naturalism imposes upon itself a restriction of explanation. All right. And that restriction of explanation necessitates that you're not able to explain a justification for reality being completely naturalistic or fundamentally physicalist in that capacity. So, with that being the case, what do you turn to? Right? What do you turn? Do you turn to what other kinds of religions that interpret reality to be spiritual in some distinct way, in some distinguishable way from another religion, or this woo-woo spirituality where everything is one, bro, or you know, what exactly would it be? And so you have to think about what is the unification, the again the syndiphionic medium, the relation between all of these is what is the necessary predicate. As well, it has to explain the means by which reality can exist. And once the reality principle is established, by necessity, the reality being that all of that which is real, then the self-generation of reality being this self-contained, and the generation of reality being that of an autologous and an automatic one, with reality being a conscious agent for the purpose of the maximization of reality. And how does it do that? And then you have to justify that. And well, how does it relate to human beings? How does it produce human beings? Why does it produce human beings? Well, how does it produce itself? How does that relate to God? All these questions can be answered, and then extensively down the road, third order, fourth order operations of questioning, it will ultimately lead to questions in pragmatics and practical daily life, and how we can influence systems to match the underlying metaphysic that we ought to match because of the underlying ethics that we went over in third order or second order questioning, right? Or whatever order it may be in the order of
All right.
philosophy.
Let's make a summary, because a lot of people, they have busy lives and they really want to watch 12 hours of cat videos and then another 3 hours
True.
of Netflix, and then only getting about I'm very bad at math, of course, so 4 hours of sleep, and then whatever, when they wake up, and then they have to go back to that 9 to 5, so
True.
the what would be the summary? Like, what would be, before we get into the summary, what would be some of the practical implications? Like, some of the things that I can immediately apply if I would just said, you know what, I'm going to take this, I'm going to just do the leap of faith, even though I don't need necessarily faith within the CTMU, by the way. But let's just say the CTMU is absolutely correct. Fuck it. CTMU is absolutely correct. What are some of the practical implications right now that I could apply that could be beneficial to my life?
Well, that question will be conditional. It will be conditional or on whether you accept the CTMU purely out of faith, or you accept it out of logic and then accept the implications therein. If you're accepting it purely out of faith, then you're not truly accepting the CTMU. Because in order to truly accept the CTMU, you have to understand the logical implications of it. You have to understand how it is actually logically coherent and descriptive. And once you do that,
Mhm.
then you can understand the implications. It's like, okay, well, what do you then do in your practical life? Well, you do anything that does not apply to the ideal image of the maximization of the self-identification of God. It's like, okay, well, that is a lot of words. What does it mean? It's like, okay, what is the set of behaviors that God would want you to do to recognize God maximally, that wouldn't hurt God's ability to produce more images of himself that recognize him? It's like, okay, well, you would first cut out any behavior that minimizes a recognition of God, okay, that is antithetical to a recognition of God, and thereby that would be antithetical to well-being, utility. You would form some kind of an ethic which would be analogous to threshold deontology, which I personally hold to be the standard ethical system of the CTMU, a threshold deontology, wherein you have certain principles like the golden rule, etc., that maximize well-being and goodness, insofar as the purview of the CTMU metaphysically is justifying the self-identification and the maximization of the self-identification of God is the axiom therein. And not just the axiom, but the metaformal necessity therein, right? And with that being the case, then you try to take back things in your life that minimize your minimize your well-being, such as whatever bad habits it may be. Try to make it a habit out of doing anything that recognizes the existence of God logically and behaviorally. And what would that imply? Well, it would imply, well, taking an active part in your community, taking an active part, more importantly, in your family, and try to get your family to understand the importance of the maximization of the self-identification of God. And that would entail the maximization of the self-identification of human beings. That would be taking care of people. That would be politically, with political implications being that of defying and disagreeing and strongly advocating against things that minimize the existence and and the self-identification of human beings, such as abortion, pro-choice, the overall progressivist ideology that minimizes a standard of human well-being in relevance and in conjunction with the ideal of human perfection, or the ideal of human maximal perfection, so long as the goal is to achieve the maximization of the self-identification of God.
Okay, I can see that. So let's get into the a summary. All right, like if you were to summarize, and of course this is like this is going to be really difficult. Like, how dare you summarize God and everything into like the 42 or something, right? But
Yeah.
what would be the summary that you would you would go to put as succinct as possible uh, about the CTMU?
The most succinct description of the CTMU would be that the CTMU describes reality as a language. It is fundamentally reducible to a language. Now, this language itself configures and itself refines for a purpose. And what is this purpose? Well, that purpose is the existence of reality itself. So this language, it configures itself from infinite ontological potential, right? UBT, in order to maximize the existence of reality. That would be the maximal goal of reality. That would be the maximally possible goal of reality, would be to maximize reality. And so in this process, there is something as telic recursion, which is the exercise of reality's free will as to achieve that goal, as to achieve and fulfill that teleology of the maximization of reality's existence, right? It would entail that reality is a mind, right? It would entail that reality is composite of not just information, meaning just physical matter, but also cognition in order for that physical matter to exist. And in order for cognition to exist, like human beings, and us more particularly, just human beings, our cognition to exist, that there must also be an informational medium which allows for our cognition and this language that reality has fundamentally, that we inherit, to manifest itself in this circulated body that we call a human being. So, in short, the CTMU model of reality is that of reality being fundamentally a language, and reality being all of that which there is, and there being nothing external to it.
Yeah. I would, in my words, I would put uh, the CTMU as succinctly as possible. Um, I would describe the CTMU as thusly: is the is the is the is the divine language of of the absolute truth of logic and mathematics able to um be what they are and what they can be in regards to the essence of what uh in the essence of what it is, or how it is and why it is. It also is and because it's also a self-configuring, self-processing language in regards to any type of identification, regards, uh, it relates to itself, about itself, and from itself, um, for its own purposes, for its own willingness, and for its own hows and its own whys in regards to its own uh, inevitable existence.
Two great summaries.
It's difficult. It was, I don't want to stumble over myself,
Yeah, the
but yeah,
CTMU is definitely complex. I mean, that is the reason that a lot of people are intimidated by it, and as a result, they just don't bother engaging with it at all, and just conclude that because they're intimidated by it, because it might be not comprehensible in the immediate moment that somebody lays their eyes upon it, then therefore it must be false, because it is not possible for somebody to not completely understand something at the first sight of its appearance. It's just not possible for the genius-like
yeah, exactly.
intellect of atheists.
Of course not. Like, you were never 5 or 6 years old, and you were like learning like basics of math, and you're like, oh well. And then if I handed you a calculus like paper and say, okay, start doing calculus, it's like you don't really have certain background knowledge. I'm not saying you can't do it, just saying that you just don't have a certain background knowledge to really engage with it and say, well, calculus is stupid. I'm never going to do it. And then like when let's say you grow up, next thing you know you're doing calculus for a living.
Yeah.
So like you don't know like the years that it takes to um get at least some type of formal level. And because the CTMU is also derived from basically um, not necessarily like a formal like academic level education. It's just basically like raw grit as well, and being able to write these things down and and coming to and realizing reality is true and presented itself in such a way that it cannot be wrong. Like Langen's theory cannot be wrong, and since Langen's theory isn't wrong and it has no contradictions within it, it's then absolutely true. And since it's absolutely true, then there is no other theory that it can like surpass it, only just equal it. So any theory that purports to be better than the CTMU, well, I would disagree with that. Equal to the CTMU, sure, but there cannot be anything that is better because nothing can be better than the mind of God. And since everything is contained within the mind of God, there can't be anything outside of the mind of God. So much like anything can't be like contained within reality. Everything is contained within reality. Everything is contained within the mind of God. So like including reality. So anything that's outside of reality is just you know even it like let's even if we suppose there is some type of outside of reality, it wouldn't be existent enough or long enough or in any evident way or even accessible coherently to be within the set of all the extant things. So I wouldn't really worry too much about it.
Yeah. I mean, if there was anything that existed external to reality, then it would just be contained within reality. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
so yeah.
And of course, the big questions, of course, a lot of people will be asking, like, all right, I may be hesitantly convinced, because it takes not just like, oh yes, a nice one day like of just reading a few pages in physics. Like some people aren't really convinced that certain theories within physics is correct. But when it comes to a more metaphysical theory, which is talking about even more fundamental aspects of reality itself, it gets even more difficult in regards to either the acceptance of it or well the rejection of it. So in order for you to have some type of rejection, because if something is reporting to be absolutely true, then what would be some type of like contradiction or some type of problem within the theory itself? Instead of just going, well, it's incomprehensible. Well, incomprehensibility doesn't mean that it's wrong. Okay, if I go over to a book and let's just suppose that this book of absolute truths exists and it happens to be written in Mandarin and I only know one language, aka English, and I look at it and I go, "Why is all these little scribbles right here? Wow, this is incomprehensible. Therefore,
Yeah.
it's wrong." So no, that's just not true. And in fact, if such a book even existed, okay, just let's just suppose it just for fun, okay, and this book of absolute truths that were written down, right, that humans have concocted, but it happened to be in just let's say Mandarin, and I don't know how to interpret that language. That doesn't mean that it's wrong. And in fact, it would be wrong of me to assume based on my own ignorance. It
Yeah.
would be should be an argument from ignorance. It should be fallacious to say that. So looking into it and going, well, other people have who had the great and wondrous credentials have discredited the theory, therefore it's wrong. Well, that would just be an argument from ignorance. And who are these people that are credentialed, and what specific content or arguments did they make that convinced you that other than their authority, that is like, oh well, that resulted in you being convinced that this theory is wrong.
And
I
usually,
would
most of
actually
the
want to
time,
see.
it's not even a correct appeal to authority. It's like a fallacious appeal to authority. Like they're talking about people in academia in reference to people that are people that are particularly in academia in the fields of physics or something that may be scientific. It's like, okay, it doesn't even matter. If 5 million physicists came out in unison tomorrow, and every single article published, and every journal possible, every newspaper, every news outlet possible, and they came out and took a unitary stand against the CTMU, it still wouldn't make it false, okay? Because it's not, and even if you're using an argument from an appeal to authority, it will be a fallacious appeal to authority because the CTMU is a philosophy, okay? And if you refer to an appeal to authority of a philosopher, right? In order for it to not be a fallacious appeal to authority, then the philosopher in question that would be in rejection of the CTMU or have a rejection towards the CTMU would have to justify on what grounds he's making a rejection towards the CTMU in order for that appeal to authority to be valid. The problem is that not a single person that has made these kinds of appeals to authority have made those justifications therein.
Right, and let's also suppose certain types of like ulterior type of like things. Like for example, let's say again that book happened to be written, the Book of Absolute Truths that happened to be in Mandarin. Okay, was written by a raving madman, right? So sure, he has mental issues. Okay, he's a raving madman, but he wrote certain types of things that are like certain people have access to, at least a good chunk of the human population, and they're like, oh yeah, this is absolute, this is absolute truth. I'm like, whoa, a book of absolute truth? No, bullshit. Let me read it, right? And but then you look at the person, right? Like, okay, who wrote this? First off, like, who cares about who wrote it? Just read the content and see if it's actually true, instead of worrying about what type of person wrote it. But let's get it deeper into like somehow the psychology of the person who wrote it, right? And go, oh, look, see, this person's a raving madman. Therefore, the book that he wrote in regards to this book called the Absolute Truth, right, in Mandarin, therefore it's wrong. Well, that would just be a psychogenic fallacy. It would basically be appealing to some type of psychological either deficit or positivity or something, and saying it's like correct or incorrect. Well, that's or usually it's more of a negative connotation. So it's like a raving madman. So therefore it's wrong, or he has a raving conspiracies, or what have you. It's like, oh, okay, so because you're appealing to certain types of psychological or behavioral deficits, mean that doesn't detract. For example, let's say Satan himself says 2 + 2 = 4, right? Or literally Hitler. I've got to bring up Hitler, of course. Says 2 + 2 = 4. Does it matter Satan or Hitler or Stalin or or Christopher Hitchens or Richard Dawkins? Like, doesn't matter who anyone like says that. They said something that was just true. That's fine. Okay. But then it's like, oh well, because he's an atheist, therefore he's wrong. Or it's like, well, no. Like that's just like appeal to a certain type of psychological. Oh, because he's a theist, therefore he's wrong. It's like it doesn't like the whole weird like psychological type of evaluation and saying and appeals to certain levels of like emotions as well doesn't convince really anyone. I mean,
Yeah.
it does convince people, but it's just fallacious reasoning in regards to getting deeper into a more like metaphysical type of
Yeah, it doesn't convince anyone
conceptualization
that
and
is worth
modeling.
convincing.
Yes, I would agree with that. And anyone who is worthy of being convinced isn't already going to be convinced by something that isn't logically consistent and coherent in regards to the syntax and grammar and the structure of what uh, is being explicated within some type of theory, right? So,
Absolutely.
um, so, so the criticisms are very lacking. I read some very um, very in-depth criticisms, but they always just didn't really understand like certain concepts. And I was like, wait a second, that's not even what the CTM is saying. Like, no, that's wrong. No, like what? No, that's not what's going on here. And in all these different specific instances, it's like, okay, there are certain there are certain other papers that was brought out to like the introduction to mathematical metaphysics or the introduction to quantum metamechanics and things like that. Um, those papers specific explicate on a very basic level the structures on a mathematical sense and in both accounts to back up the CTMU. Just in case people are like, oh, there's no math to back up the CTMU. Now there's no like on a very basic level. Okay, there's not it's not basic obviously. I'm not I'm just saying that it's a basic um understanding, because there's a lot more specifics that he hasn't explicated, because a lot of people are just trying to rip him off, trying to like take all of what he's doing, and then just pawning it off as their own. So
Yeah.
and he's been educating people on the CTMU for how long has it been? At least 40 years, if not a little bit more, for free. So, sure, he's now charging what, the subtac and stuff. He's charging some money here and there, and that's totally fine. I think that's actually a good thing, that he's actually being able to even support himself, because of people actually want to support him and his works and his writings,
Yeah.
because he's been graciously educating the people for so many years. And what does he get gotten? Canceled. He's gotten he's gotten no interviews until now, until what that Michael Knowles interview,
Yeah.
and with that huge success. Other than really that, and then of course the smaller successes on I would say not smaller successes. It's like all these huge successes with ABC News and back in the turn of the millennium and stuff. And doing the certain IQ tests and evaluations, live on camera and stuff.
Right.
Just to make sure, like, okay, well, there's a supposed claim. Let's go get someone. Let's go hire someone. Let's go get someone that actually does psychometric testing and stuff. Just in case he's just a fraudster or something. They actually brought someone on to verify that this person isn't a fraudster.
Yeah.
Just to make sure. This was like, and they did, and then the guy.
And then the
Again,
people in
this is like an
the
appeal to
people in my
authority.
comment sections when I brought that up are like, well, the psychologist could have lied, and it's like ABC News is just like trying to do this for
Wait.
attention.
Wait, hold on. They hired someone that lied about
Being a
um
psychologist, yeah, literally.
being a psychologist, which again that would result in his license being revoked. Number two, that would he lied about like the psychometric testing that he did for what, 20 years. So he'll lie about that. Again, what we gain
And all of this
again, and which would result in.
elaborate conspiracy is just to prop up Chris Langan for no fucking reason. It's like,
And then it's like, and then on this, it's like, and then this person who is who is also a neurologist, by the way. I remember a little bit of his credential or something. And it's like, wait. So this person is also a lot. Like, let's look at this. Hey,
yeah,
let's
I think he
look
was a
this guy up.
neuropsychologist. Yeah,
Yeah. And he's like over 20 years of that he's been doing uh like psychometric testing. He's not seen anyone that scored as high as Chris Sagan.
yeah, but that doesn't mean his IQ is 200 like you guys claimed. It's like
Well,
Jesus Christ,
it's
man. There's
only
no
165. It's higher than his, which the neuropsychologist guy, he claims I think 160 or something. Okay, so like he admits this guy. It may not be no 200, bro, no 200 IQ. Okay, not the meme, but it's obviously like, okay, it's higher.
Dude, it's like
It's
you're essentially
like, wait,
arguing
hold
with
on.
people that have mental disabilities because like it's like somebody saying that you can't drive a red car because you can't drive cars and you demonstrate to them, here's me driving a car. But the car is not red. It's like there's just no point. There's no zero substance here. The people are just stupid.
Yeah, that is legitimate stupid. That doesn't. That's yeah. That's silly. When it comes to that, like, okay, so, and then it's like, even and so they can't attack in the theory on, oh, it's made by some unintelligent fool, and it's just and it's incomprehensible.
Yeah.
Okay, like, oh well, it's incomprehensible because his IQ is too big now. I was like, wait, hold on. Now you're telling me that like a very I would say simple, but it is a general like overview of the CTMU, a 52-page paper from 2002. Admittedly, it has a lot of like different terminology and stuff. Like, okay, it's like reading like a math textbook. Like, what does all this mean? Like, what does all these symbols mean? Or reading another language. What does it mean? Not. It's like you're basically it hurts their ego, like these poor innocent atheist egos. They go around and like, oh look, I see this theory there, and because it's I don't understand it, and because it's actually kind of it's like a almost like an IQ test. And because my IQ is like 100 out of 100, right? That's my IQ test results. All right, yeah, dead average. Hell yeah. Um, it makes them realize I'm not as intelligent as they thought, and it results in like this Dunning-Kruger effect of their confidence of saying, "Oh yeah, of course it's wrong," because they realize that if they're wrong, then their entire view, what they've been espousing for maybe years, if not decades, some of these people, are wrong, and and it's tied to their fundamental identity. There's a reason why God's self-identification. There's this disconnect, and if you're not connected with God's self-identification, it's going to be quite difficult for you to try to come back to even try to understand God.
Yeah.
Right? But God's forgiveness is available. It's there. It's there. But you have to do the work and willingness to understand these things. And I think that debate, the great debate 2.0 isn't about going to be talking about, um, you know, God doesn't exist or God does exist. It's going to be talking about why does God exist, or how does God exist in the way that He does, or is God a she, or how is God working right now, or what is God doing, right? Or what is God doing in my life? Okay, things like that. These types of questions would be then answered or eventually answered within the CTMU in regards to the interpretation. So,
Yeah.
um, and I think all questions will be answered within the CTMU, and we can generate new axioms within the CTMUs, so you can then build new types of systems to then evaluate certain types of truth claims in regards to certain types of propositions. So, um, so of course, there's going to be criticism of like, oh well, absolute truth. Anyone who claims absolute truth is absolutely wrong. Well, are you absolutely sure? And if you are absolutely sure that someone's wrong, then that means that there's at least one absolute truth that is true, except that person's absolutely wrong. So,
Yeah.
so absolute truth still exists. So that would be quite the irony right there. Little kiss on the right there. So to really just wrap this up, to really make sure everything is nice and neat here. Um, my my main gripes with not just the criticisms of the CTMU, but what are some of the things that we can like really see in the future? Like what kind of explication or what kinds of things will there be in regards to any like uh, building uh, of like truth or certain types of scientific theories that could eventually come out of the CTMU because of it? What would your thoughts be on that?
Um, to be honest, I don't really think there's much hope for that as of right now in the moment. I don't believe that there's much room right now, as given the current base of people that believe in the CTMU and its reputation, as repudiated by people online, is well accepted enough to see a potential future that is accepted and has the ability to flourish in modern academia or science or anything of the nature that has to do with an understanding of reality that can be widespread because of the common misconceptions that people have of an understanding of how reality must operate or how a philosophy of reality must operate, and their misattributions of their own understandings of reality to a theory such as the CTMU, predicated upon, atheistic ideals, scientific realism, scientism, things of the nature. I think those just fundamentally disable the common person's ability to truly conceive of the CTMU as that of absolute truth because of just this enormous amount of propaganda that has been woven into the person's brain. It's and the major composition of which being fallacious, right? But there's not much that we can do about that except for debating these people and destroying them, as Ben Shapiro says, in the marketplace of ideas.
Yes, let the best ideas win, because there isn't any winners or losers when acknowledging the truth. It's just the acceptance of what happens, and whatever will be, and whatever identification of what the fallout of it is in regards to the marketplace of ideas. The
Yeah,
best idea, the best idea is that which is the truest idea, and that which is the truest idea will then result in it being one that will be revealed to be always true, and that which is then revealed to always then be true is then, of course, going back to all the monotheistic type of religions and appealing to God.
absolutely. So, you want to wrap it up here?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching this episode, the first installment of the CTMU show. That's what we're gonna call it, right? The CTMU show. You know.
I know, don't call it a CTMU show. Chris Legge is gonna be like, what's going on here, sir?"
Oh, I mean the Telic show.
It's ooh, okay. That's okay. I like that. Let's call
Yeah,
it the Telic show. The
we're gonna call
Telic
it the Telic
show.
show. Well, hang on. Let me just put out my alarm.
Oh, by the way, there's a few other people that have come up with divine solipsism, uh,
All right.
but I
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
back.
I came up with I came up with I don't know if I came up with it first. I would just say Chris Sagan came up with it first. Just
Okay.
he inspired divine solipsism from distributed solipsism. So I'm taking the unique aspects of like distributed solipsism, uh, and saying that we're recognizing our own divinity in regards to the relation that we have with reality. Okay, that's why I say that there's the divine solipsism, and that
Sure.
solipsism is usually trying to like it's saying that, oh well, you only recognize your own mind as real. Well, it's kind of similar to idealism as well, or all is mind or something, right?
Yeah.
But there's some structure that's left out in regards to certain like objectivity and subjectivity. There is both. There's a relationship there to even have certain types of distinctions. So so there's certain things that um we have to get into in like further episodes and stuff.
Yeah, in further episodes, we're gonna have to get into like the details, the Spurgy autistic level analysis of like the SCSBL and the grammar of the metaformal system and shit like that.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah. We're gonna yell at each other about that. Like,
that
no,
that
bitch.
that's
Like your
all of that is
syntax
gonna be
doesn't
fun.
fucking follow. That's gonna be
All of
so
that is
fun.
going to be fun because remember, guys, like this is a chance for everybody to learn. Okay,
Oh yeah.
me and reference point included. Okay, this is just going to be a big. It's going to be the self-identification of the CTMU through us two, and you guys can watch and enjoy while we make jokes about Matt Dillahunty every episode. Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Dude, if Matt Hudney like contacts one of us and says you want to debate, I will fucking do it. Do it live. I
It'll be
don't care.
amazing.
That'd be so funny.
Yeah.
I don't care if even if I lose, like it perceptually, I don't care. Like it would just be fun to just do. To be honest, like it'd just be fun to like,
It would just be
yeah,
fun to
like
do.
yeah, it'd just be fun to do. Like just get some skin in the game, so to speak, right? Like actually like
Absolutely. Right.
debate someone like that. Because I actually this is like 10, 12, like God, I was like 14 back in those forums where you had to be like 18 and stuff. Of course, I lied about my age. But lying's wrong, bros. Don't do that. Like, shut up, fuck you. Anyway, so um, I the back in the forums there were certain people that I just have certain inferences. I don't have the best evidence to support my claims. How dare I? Oh no. But um one of them sounded similar to what Matt Dillahunty is doing today all those years ago. And I think I was arguing against him and I was like, well he's like the pink unicorn doesn't exist and I'm like, well, anything that doesn't exist cannot exist. So you're saying that a pink unicorn cannot exist? Oh no, it can conceptually exist. I said, okay, so there's conceptual existence and then the actual existence. So what's the distinction that you're making? I asked him that, and he's like, well, he just basically tried to say no you, and I was like, what the fuck? No, you. This is about your view, not my view. The fuck?
Yeah.
And then I got banned. And I got banned. I remember that ban. I got banned for all kinds of shit and
Yeah,
shenanigans
true.
that I did. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you tend
and then
to
like
people tend to get banned in these atheist forums and debate servers. I mean, kind of
oh yeah, like they bring
ridiculous.
up they bring up the like just again I'm not advocating for Thomism, okay, by the way, but yeah, I'm gonna have to go. So yeah, see ya, man.
All right, man. See ya. Well, that is it for this episode. Thank you guys for watching, and we're gonna be back next week with another episode, an installment of the Telic show. We're gonna get the promotions of each individual. You guys can subscribe to me here on my YouTube channel, Omni. Okay, you better watch out because soon enough I'm going to be launching a project of a kind that is relevant to the CTMU and more particularly just coordinated to focus on philosophy and debate in general at large. Okay, and you guys are gonna love it. Join the Discord, the Omni Discord. This is where the podcast occurs. So if you want to shit on me, or if you want to shit on the guests, or whoever it is that you want to shit on with reference to the CTM, if you want to tell us how fucking stupid we are because we're not atheists or whatever it may be, we suck because we believe in God. Just come to the server and talk some shit, have some fun, debate people, debate the ideas. Don't be a pussy. Okay, have a good one. Goodbye.